All right, I'm here with Sam Blake, our resident media reporter here at .LA. Sam, thanks so much for joining me.
Of course. Hi, Kelly.
Okay, so let's jump in. You've written a ton about the streaming wars lately with how much the industry has benefited from the COVID pandemic. So I'd love to get your thoughts on this area. One thing that comes to mind is that there are just so many services in the market that it's a bit overwhelming for the consumer. So in your opinion, which ones are best positioned to win out right now?
I'll start by saying I think the streaming wars are a bit of a misnomer because it's really more of a war for attention. And that's why you're seeing people say that, Netflix doesn't just compete with Disney Plus, but it competes with Fortnite and Sleep. And there are three factors that I think about which help me sort of figure out which ones have a better competitive advantage. And that's data, that's having a corporate support system, and that's the content library. So if I were looking at data, number one would have to be Netflix, very much supported by their early entry, and it just continues to feed their service in a big way. When I look at corporate backing, there's a lot of that, but at the top of the list is Amazon, and then there's also Apple. Amazon has had a better track record so far than Apple, and Apple is really sort of more like dipping its toe in the water. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it. But within that bucket, I would probably have to pick Amazon. And then with content, and these are also the players that I'm about to mention, certainly backed by big corporations, but we've got Disney Plus, we've got HBO Max coming up, and we've got NBCU's Peacock. So those all have big content libraries, and they are backed by big corporate players. I do think this factor, the content library, is a bit of a bit less valuable because it's more fungible. You can buy and sell content, and we may see that down the road. But so if you're gonna gun to my head, make me pick a couple, I'd probably pick one or two from that last bucket: Amazon and Netflix.
Well, I really like your framework for thinking about it. And I especially agree with your point on data. I think that is becoming so incredibly important. But the thing is that even with the number of services that you just mentioned, right? It'd be four or five. That's still a lot for a consumer to pay for when all of these services came out of the fact that pay TV was so expensive. So do you think that we might actually see a rebundling at some point for consumers so that it's more palatable in terms of price and experience?
To your point, a lot of the unbundling has been to allow these companies to get closer to the consumer. I mean, indeed, that's the phrase, direct to consumer, and that gives them data to not only improve their service in these, in this video streaming, but as well as their other corporate entities when you have companies that are set up like that. So definitely, though, I think we'll see some consolidation. And then one last thing I'll say about this is I think we're also seeing like a blurring of lines of the way we even describe and talk about media. You look at something like a concert in Fortnite. Is that a concert? Is it music? Is it a video game? Is it a TV show? And so I think we're going to continue to see that as well.
Yeah, I like the point that you made about how this has allowed companies to get closer to the consumer, because you're right. I mean, when Disney had ESPN and they had a deal with Comcast, they didn't get any of the data, but they're getting tons of data from Disney Plus, which is going to help them across all the different areas of their company, not just in figuring out what content consumers want to watch there. I'll admit I'm going to back Apple if they actually do decide to do more than dip their toe in because of their potential vertical integration, but we'll see. So another player that jumped in recently that you've written quite a bit about is Quibi. How are they faring after launching a couple of months ago?
I reviewed them early on. I had early access to them. And then, and as well as now, I think the main thing people are saying is that Quibi needs a breakout hit to become this sort of, cultural force that people are talking about, people want to get in on, and they want to see. And it hasn't really happened. When I was doing that preview leading up to the launch, I certainly thought the content was good. It was above a threshold where I would say, yeah, this is what they call like studio level. I'm certainly no arbiter of what's going to have mass appeal, but I thought it was good. The main point that I had then was that their value proposition as an on-the-go service was totally undermined by the pandemic. And I think that's basically what you're seeing when Jeffrey Katzenberg says he blames it all on the coronavirus. I did talk to Meg Whitman though early on as well, and she said she wanted to really reevaluate only after like a year or so. So she's in a bit of a long game mode. They have a lot of money, raised almost $2 billion. So it's certainly too early to put a fork in Quibi, I would say. It hasn't been a great start. We'll see where it goes, and no one's even sure if things, as things return to normal, whatever that may be, if that value proposition will stick. But we'll see.
Yeah, they certainly got hit by the fact that we're not traveling anywhere. We don't have those 10 minutes in between meetings and such because everything's now done on Zoom. So who wants to look at their screen again? But I am surprised that they haven't pivoted their marketing a little bit more. Because I mean, you're seeing some of these other companies that are hit hard by the pandemic, but they've found ways. So that should be interesting. Another one that you've written quite a bit about is TikTok, that now boasts Kevin Mayer, mastermind behind Disney Plus, as its new CEO. So what do you think the new appointment signals for TikTok?
Yeah, it's a super interesting area there. I think, some of the big questions that immediately pop out are will TikTok kind of change and become sort of a little more Disney-esque and having a bit more of a stability in its content empire, or will it retain this kind of looser, more user-generated, more ephemeral content? And I think another thing hanging over TikTok that's been there and will continue to be there is it's basically political issues with respect to China's cybersecurity intentions, and recently also some child protection issues when it comes to data privacy. So I think it signals that they're taking these issues seriously. I think one thing that's interesting though is that one of his blemishes was at Disney was with Maker Studios, which was kind of that sort of YouTube creative style studio more or less, and that's considered a failure more or less. So it'll be interesting to see the extent to which he's learned lessons from that and what he'll apply there as he does whatever he's going to do with TikTok.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm very curious to see how he does here, because he was considered a very digitally forward executive at a traditional media company, and now he's going to be more of the traditional executive at one of the most digitally forward media companies out there. But thanks so much, Sam, for joining us. I could talk about streaming wars for all eternity, so I'm sure we will hear more from you in the future on this. Thanks so much.